Want to learn about public policy with a group of curious fellow learners? Apply for the 12-week graduate certificate in public policy. Early bird deadline closes 27th July.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello everyone, welcome to the new episode of All Things Policy. I am Dr. Nithiyanandam, Professor and Head of Geospatial Research Programme at Takshashila Institution. With me today, we have an interesting guest, a man behind a key initiative from Department of Communication, Mr. Gokul, who is an Additional Director General of Ministry of Communications. Welcome, Gokul, to this policy podcast.
Thank you, Nithiyanandam. Thank you for the invitation for this podcast.
Right. Gokul, in last 1 month, we have been, 1 or more months, we have been discussing about a key, term called DigiPIN. So maybe to begin with, if you can explain to our listeners what is DigiPIN and what are its core objectives and so on, that would be helpful for, setting up a stage.
Okay. DigiPIN is, we can say it's a type of geohash algorithm. It's what it basically does is that it converts the lat long of a location into a 10-digit alphanumeric code.
Right.
It tries to represent the location attributes into a human readable, system readable alphanumeric string, so that the GIS information associated with the address can be represented in a much better way from a normal citizen's perspective. The address right now is shared and consumed in most of the cases in a textual format. The problem with this textual addressing is that, first of all, it does not have the GIS information associated with it, and as well as and another issue is that it is not system readable, due to which digitalization of service delivery often this textual address becomes a chalk point for digitalization of service delivery. So keeping service delivery in mind, we recognize that there is a need to standardize the way in which addresses are represented, and also a way to incorporate GIS information associated with an address in a much friendlier manner. So that's how DigiPIN came in place.
Right. So in simple terms, if I can put it in this way to larger audience, so the address runs with multiple lines of information, right? And the door number, the street number, and the town and district, and finally the PIN code. So what you are trying to do is something perhaps trying to get something equivalent like what we are doing as a location sharing in our WhatsApp, but to get a proper code where it can be recognized by both geographic information system as well as the general public, who can able to recognize, and the user and the information provider both can able to recognize it, so that it can enable better location information in a much simple alphanumeric code, right? That's a simplest form of it.
Yes. Before getting into the detail, one clarification. I think when you say it like that, people often in media and all, what they kind of represent is that this is some kind of Aadhaar for address. But that is something I would like to clarify from the start itself. It's Aadhaar is something unique identifier for an address, right? But
Right.
if you look at the concept of DigiPIN, it's not. DigiPIN is basically a GIS information associated with an address. So the idea is that every 3.8 meter into 3.8 meter area on the ground has a 10-digit alphanumeric code associated with it. So it's add value, or it gives much, it gives an information associated with address, but it's not a unique address identifier.
Yeah, because it cannot be a unique address, because the size we are talking about is 3.8 meter cross 3.8 meter. So if an if an house is of if a 2 bedroom 3 bedroom house, definitely it will have more than one DigiPIN for its location. So this is not a unique identifier. Thanks for clarifying it in the beginning itself. So people can interpret it, and I'm sure people are also saying this will replace the address systems, or this will replace the pin code at all on the ground. So is it true, like, will it replace the pin code system itself on the ground?
So here the thing is that the reliance on the existing textual address, different textual attributes,
Right.
is eventually going to the dependency on such attributes are going to go away. I feel like over a period of time, when when DigiPIN get more popularized, the need to write state, district, your city, even pin code, the need to specifically write them slowly goes away. But this is not a replacement of the textual address, I would say, but rather the dependency on such textual address is going to go away as and when the suppose I can give an example. Department has in previous year, we took a pan-Indian exercise of geo-referencing the pin code boundaries in the country and creating an pin code data set, and we released the GeoJSON file in
Right.
open government data platforms for everyone to consume. Okay, so
Awesome.
which
Yeah.
means that for any location, the corresponding pin code can be auto-generated now.
Right.
So if you have the DigiPIN, you don't have to specifically write the pin code. But the idea is not to replace them, but the idea is that you don't have to provide all these different attributes, such a larger granularity than DigiPIN, because DigiPIN is the smaller, can be considered the smallest unit, which the user
Yeah.
can then convey for the purpose of getting a service delivered at their doorstep.
That's very interesting. So, since you said you have digitized the pin code boundaries, how this boundaries represent? Is it different from the district level boundaries or the town level boundaries? How it is different from the administrative boundaries? This is an interesting point, because what is being represented, I believe the postal zones were made much earlier, and if we are able to recreate the boundary, probably you would have figured out some of the operational challenges. That is why DigiPIN is something introduced. And there are two questions here: how it looks like. Second is how important this one is for your postal department per se. Will it improve your operational efficiency or accuracy in postal services? So just two questions to kickstart
Yeah.
with more information on this.
PIN code was introduced in 1972. So
Right.
in order to optimize and standardize the mail delivery in the department. So this we are talking about pre-liberalization phase, where DOP was one of the, or maybe one of the, maybe few players in this ecosystem. So it was more of for our own operations, I would say, and the general public to use it. So what happened is that there was some schema associated with it. There is a fixed schema of how the pin codes are represented, how which each digit or character represent. So one thing, it is very clear that pin code boundary is not coterminous with, or even district boundaries, or even state boundaries in some cases. So since it's from an operational standpoint, suppose think about a scenario where the one area, one village is accessible from one part of the state, though it is
Right.
lies between the boundary of other particular state, right?
Right.
Think about the boundary villages or some part of the state.
Right.
So
Got
all
it.
such complex scenario may come into picture. So we understood that there is a need to geo-reference the boundaries of this pin code on an actual basis, So the one problem with pin code, I would say, is that it is not. First of all, it's not standardized in the sense from an area perspective. There are
Right.
pin codes in the country which are lesser than 1 kilometer square. Then there are pin codes which are 20,000 plus square kilometer, more than that.
Wow.
So there is that wide range of area that a 6-digit pin code represent. Okay. And there are peculiar cases in which there are pin codes within pin codes. Suppose there is a district administrative complex. Okay. So it can happen that that particular complex has a pin code and all the surrounding area might have a different pin code.
Oh my God.
So all kind of complex boundaries existed. So it was realized that even after 50 years of introduction, there was need to georeference the pin code boundaries. So it took us almost 6 to 8 months to do that activity, doing a lot of field surveys to get those boundaries fixed, and also we made sure that there is no overlapping of pin code. There are no areas which do not belong to any other pin code. So all the point within the Survey of India's boundary right now has a pin code associated with it. And this was also required for, when during the introduction of DigiPIN, like I said, now DigiPIN is introduced. So you can auto-populate the pin code associated with it. So in order to that to happen, this activity was also important. So from a department standpoint, by introduction of DigiPIN, what we are this is very internal value addition that we are seeing is that, right now, when an article is getting delivered, it is based on the textual address and a human's ability to interpret that address, right?
Right.
So in order to create a validation, for example, that what is the easiest route to go to, like in the case of any GIS based operation that hyper local delivery companies does, so they are able to facilitate their delivery personnel through a GIS based application, right?
Correct.
And also they can create validation whether the delivery person has actually gone to that location. They can create validation that delivery will only happen within, say, 100 meter within the supposed delivery location.
Right.
So there was a need to digitalize for that digitalization of service delivery. So DigiPIN is the first step in that regard. This I'm talking internally from a department perspective.
Right.
But from maybe our country as a whole, for different sector, DigiPIN can have different implication.
So this will definitely improve the operation efficiency. And the first part, as you said, I could actually, very well imagine how tedious it could be to transform the pin code into a GIS boundary. So I'm sure, you would have faced a lot of challenges on the ground. Yeah. So moving on to further things. So there's some key concepts, right? And technologies driving the DigiPIN initiative. So we know it is GIS based, but you have put out a nice document which is also explaining how it is, narrowing down. What is that 10-digit, alphanumeric code means? So starting from a national level grid and further bisecting into smaller pieces. And then finally it leads to a 3.8 meter grid at the end. So can you throw some light on that? So that would be an interesting for, budding researchers who wants to know what is behind the, tech of it.
So first of all, DigiPIN is an open source logic. Right, it's we had that is the core at its core, right? So we are creating something which is open to everyone for them to see what the code is and how it is generated, how it is generated from lat long, and how lat long can be generated from DigiPIN, right? The location. So how it thanks to IIT Hyderabad and NRC ISRO. Through a collaborated manner, we came up with this logic. So how it works is that, first a bounding box is created within which the DigiPIN works. So it works within this 36 degree latitudinally, 36 degree longitudinally one box, okay, which represent the area of interest for the country. Then it is divided into 16 grid points and carefully selected 16 alphanumeric characters are assigned to each of this grid in a predefined manner.
Right.
So the characters used is that 2 to 9, 0 and 1 is not used because it looks similar to O and I. From the alphabet side, we have used CFT, CFJ, KLM, PT. So we have not used any of the vowels. We have not used visually looking, similar looking characters. We have even avoided two characters with having similar phonetical similarity. So we have removed all such probability. Why we removed vowels is that there is, if you see, 16 to the power of 10 combinations possible. So if we if you look at all the possibility of different DigiPIN, so we don't want to have words formation basically. So there can be some weird words that might emerge if we put in vowels into the mix. So so there was a lot of thought into it. So what we did is that so I'll get into the schema. It's otherwise. How it does is, so initially it divides this 36-degree longitudinally, 36-degree latitudinally box into the 16 grid point, and further each grid is further divided into 16, and the same schema is used. Okay, and it's an iterative hierarchy based model like most of the geohash algorithms. And at the end of 10th iteration, you end up having a 3.8, approximately 3.8 into 3.8 meter box, which having a 10-digit alphanumeric character associated with it, right? So let us take an example. The area which Delhi is in that box, it is the box, the character assigned to it is 3. Okay, so all the points within that initial box will have its first character, which the string starting with 3. Right. So now further in the further when we drill down, suppose there is a box which start with J. So in the second iteration, so what will happen is that it will be something like 3J. So all the area within that particular box will be having the first two characters 3 and J. So it's an iterative method, and we have released this code, the source code, through GitHub, so that everyone can see what we are talking about. And we have so that's a basic idea.
No, I mean, at that point, I was just thinking, why we need to release the code in at this stage to telling people, see what we are doing. An interactive explanation would be good enough. But, is it something where people can use the code and replicate the process by themselves for parallel service? Or what is the prime, agenda behind releasing a code in a document prima facie, that's asking public opinion stage?
Yeah, so what happened is that this is not something that happened just now. Okay, we had released the beta version of the DigiPIN actually even in July 2024. So even that happened through a lot of internal discussion as well as interministerial coordination under thematic working group under National Geospatial Policy. So July 2024, it was decided that, let us release the technical document on DigiPIN and the source code to the public for people to look at it and see, people to see what it is. And we want to be transparent there. Again, the other thing is that, let us take an example of, say, Ghana Post. So our understanding, there are two ways we could have rolled this out. One way is that Department of Post or the central government keeps full control on this code, and through some API integration, we allow people to code and decode what DigiPIN represent. Okay.
Right.
So if that was the route that we have taken in many of the countries, like even Ghana Post, there is that dependency on the central authority for coding and decoding. Okay. So that creates, first of all, a sense of control, and also the adoption rate. Always there is that, some kind of permission
higher than when there is a transparency. Yeah.
There is a sense of permission requirement or some kind of, we are creating a digital public infrastructure where public and private sector can co-create on this particular layer, right? So what we have done is that we have released the source code, and which facilitate public sector and private sector build on top of this.
Right.
So that was the idea basically.
Right. Fantastic. So, since you have taken up geospatial policy and post the policy, there are a lot of things happening and the geospatial ecosystem is getting better in India. So, what are the possible impact DigiPIN can create on applications and on innovations going on with the Indian geospatial ecosystem? What do you foresee as possible, developments?
So what we can, like, based on, I'm not from a GIS background, but
Right,
still
right.
based on my understanding of the whole ecosystem, there are a lot
No,
of sectors which,
basically, even just I'm interrupting here because since you have introduced beta version a year ago, and then people have interacting with you, you would have seen an interest, right? You would have seen
yeah,
an
yeah,
interest from industry, a
yeah.
different set of industry. They may feel like, well, this would be very much useful to us. We are ready to adapt it. So I'm asking that part.
Yeah, yeah. So what I can see from my limited, no, almost 2 years in this project, what I can see
Hmm.
is that lot of sectors which never was traditionally GIS based is going to
Right,
slowly open up into, like, incorporating GIS technologies into it. So
right.
lot of existing sectors, like take health sector for that matter.
Hmm, hmm.
Right now, the patients who are coming in for a service delivery, we take the maybe the textual address of them, right?
Right.
So what might happen is that from a government level, GIS based epidemic management, that this introduction of DigiPIN into health sector might open up the possibility of R&D, GIS based analysis of epidemic prediction, risk modeling. It is going to open up that sector like that. So GIS application tools are going to come into place as slowly DigiPIN gets adopted from by general public, private sector, as well as from government departments. So this is just one
Right,
example.
right.
Similarly, in different wherever address data is shared, consumed, and processed, this DigiPIN layer is going to introduce that much required precision, right? So what it is going to allow is that, what it is going to facilitate is that it is going to
Hmm,
facilitate digitalization of service delivery in multiple sectors. Even from a government perspective, whenever some beneficiary onboarding happen, when a scheme is being formulated and implemented, right now the granularity of some kind of system readable code when it comes to address is pin code, right? Pin code is then,
right.
like we said, it is representing a larger area. So that is the granularity that we have when it comes
Hmm,
to address data. So what
hmm.
DigiPIN is going to come allow or facilitate is this, the ability for, from a better planning perspective, from a policy, government is thinking of introducing some schemes, so they can look at the historical data as DigiPIN
Hmm,
get
hmm.
matured. And from a even implementation standpoint, if they know the beneficiary spread or the service delivery points, they can plan the service delivery itself in a much better way. I'm not talking just about logistic service
Hmm,
delivery,
hmm.
I'm talking about service delivery as a in general, actually.
Right, right. But then Gokul, since I'm in more close to 1.5 decades now on this field, so I was just wondering, two aspects here. When we in the policy document that we put out, it is also specified it would be useful for disaster response and many other things. When we are in an age where we could share the location just by sharing our pin in WhatsApp and other stuffs,
Yeah.
how this would be effective on operation on ground. Second, when you said you have clearly mentioned this is not exclusively for the goods delivery or things like that, because anyway the private players have figured out their own mechanism in reaching out the last miles. But you said it will be helpful for service deliveries at large, the government schemes and things like that. I think for that, we already have village level boundaries, right? Village information and village level boundaries. The only thing this can bring is how many people are actually benefiting from a particular smallest unit of area. So let's say within a village, within a particular street, how many people are precisely using a particular benefit, or a category of people who are precisely living in a particular street. That kind of information government can actually infer and make the process better. So but while saying this, will it actually impact the privacy of the people? Because right now it is very well documented saying like we are not taking private information about the digipin when we offer a digipin, because it is a process. You click on a map and you get your location. But in future, when it is when it is slowly replacing the address system, and when this will be taken as an identity along with your health information, if it is taken along with other government informations, you will be narrowed down with some, let's say, Gokul or Nithiyanandam with a particular digital pin. That's like what we are seeing in other countries. In that case, is it something which may likely to hamper the privacy of individuals? Because we are going with specific location on the country, like you know exactly where a person lives, what benefits he gets, what are the different aspects associated with them. Is it something like you're foreseen? How are you planning to manage this part?
So there are three questions in there. The first
Right,
question is regarding existing proprietary solutions for location sharing, right?
right,
So let
right,
us take the WhatsApp for that matter. So there are certain things, some assumptions in there, right? First of both of us has WhatsApp facility. Second thing
right.
is that the WhatsApp has Google APIs integrated into it, right?
Hmm.
So proprietary system to proprietary system location transfer, it's a solved issue in the country. We are not
Hmm.
trying to
Hmm.
invent that.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and also internet is a requirement for all such location transfer within such proprietary system, most of the cases, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So what we are saying is that there is a dependency where we have to see that, okay, banks for that matter, why are they
Hmm.
then collecting textual address? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
every GIS integration have a dependency on a proprietary API, location
Hmm.
based API. So there is a cost factor also associated with it. Obviously, there are other reasons, but I'm saying
Hmm.
so there is dependency on this proprietary software. So that is one part of it. So the value proposition DigiPIN is putting forward is that it's a human readable text string basically, right? DigiPIN is a 10-digit
Hmm.
textual string. So I can share my location through over call, over normal text messages. I can write it on a piece of paper. So
Hmm.
DigiPIN bridges the gap between physical location and its digital representation and its ability to convert to share this in multiple modes. You can share it on a piece of paper and pass it. You can write it on a ledger. You can text it.
Hmm.
So in a scenario when I'm even this phone over this audio podcast, I have the capability to share my location on a audio platform if I know my DigiPIN. So that is the
Right,
value
right.
proposition DigiPIN is for providing. So the
Hmm.
dependency on existing proprietary softwares as a proprietary solutions and internet over internet, that is what DigiPIN is trying to bridge. That gap, it is what is trying to bridge. That is the first question.
Hmm.
Second question is regarding the government. Already there are village boundaries, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you like one thing I have noticed, like based on our study, is that whenever there is a beneficiary onboarding happening, there is
Okay.
lot of information, address information that user are supposed to know. What is the district that you belong, what is the state that you belong, what is the
Right,
village that
right.
you belong. And these are all often like in your any of the online forms that you're filling, I am supposed to know all those things. It is as a citizen we may be supposed to know that, but there is all these manual data entry features. No, first of all, it is a very if you see almost such online forms, there is any dependent. First of all, citizen is supposed to know all this information. First of all, second thing is that citizen is supposed to also any redundancy in such hierarchy based textual mapping, like this state have these many districts, this district have these many villages, any redundancy in this hierarchy that the government is maintaining, that gets affected actually in the service delivery itself. So
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
we are following we are actually thinking of the bottoms up approach, where from a citizen perspective they only have to know the location of that day, or they only have to know the DigiPIN. All other attributes, it is government duty to fetch, like in the sense, what is the nearest post office, what is your nearest hospital, what is your nearest
Hmm.
police
Hmm.
station. As a user, I am not supposed to know that information. If while filling a form, if it is my duty to know which is the post office that I belong to, or the police station I belong to, which is the nearest customer service center or the common service center. So burden on the information requirement that user has to provide, we are
Correct.
flipping that and say that you provide the minimal information, let the government or the service agency figure the rest of the things.
Right.
So that is I'm coming from I'm trying to partially answer your second question.
Right.
But also the granularity is very important, right? Let us go back to the previous example of, suppose R&D on research and development on the historical chikungunya spread in the country. Okay,
Right.
the granularity at which that information is available may be at the village level, or maybe, if at all, maybe at a pin code level. Below that granularity, that data does not exist, or you have to do some kind of language model to, if at all the textual data is collected from the patient at a very large level. So what it allows is that it allows to bring in that granularity, okay, which is directly system readable, which allows to facilitate all kind of even research analysis on such kind of even time-based trends, as well as some kind of vulnerability mapping in different sectors, which are the areas which are underserved when it comes to educational indexes, like health indexes,
Right.
service quality indexes, which are the area which right now does not have say electricity connections. What is the catchment area associated with that? So from the moment we have such user data, location address data, government and private sector also helps them to plan accordingly. That is, I am partially answering the second question. Coming to the third question, which is a very important question regarding privacy. So we are living in the Digital Personal Data Protection Act era, right? So any personal data collection or any data that can be qualified as personal data has to be based on the consent of the user, right? Under which in order to adhere to the DPDP Act. So what we are also recommending for any agency or private government and be it private sector who are integrating DigiPIN or any such solutions, any data collection from the user has to be consent based, and it should be based on and it should be used only for those things the user has given the consent to. So that is very clear. So we are also, if you see our workflow in the web application that we have released, we specifically select the collects the consent of the user for the purpose of even showing the DigiPIN. Again, if you see the workflow associated with the web application, we are not collecting any personal information from the user. So we are making it very clear and we are signaling to the user and the general public is that you don't have to give your personal information for the purpose of DigiPIN creation and decoding. So that is one part. Second part is that I totally agree with you is that as user starts creating and generating and the service agency start consuming DigiPIN will be part of their profile over a period of time. But again, since we are living under the protection of DPDP Act, any data processing would have by the data fiduciary and the data processing agency, they would have to adhere to DPDP Act. So right now, in some DB or some registry, my address is there, right, as textual format. The value addition that DigiPIN provides is the granularity to it. So right now also, if DigiPIN is not in place also, even if you are providing your address, the service agency is only supposed to use that address along with your profile for only those purposes you have provided that address for, right? So the value addition is that granularity and the system readability and the fact that user is providing that information. Yeah, that's the idea.
Can we expect DigiPIN as part of the census which is likely to be carried out?
Actually, I don't have that visibility. It's totally done by a different organization. So what we have done that from a Department of Post, what we have done is that we have released a technical document and we have shared the technical document with all the central ministries, state government, and in the public domain. So we are already seeing adoption and integration of DigiPIN into a lot of workflow within the government as well as from the private sector. But it is totally up to that organization on different organization to take the call when are we in a comfortable position to integrate DigiPIN.
Right. I completely agree with you, Gokul, on this, because you created with a fair system that is transparent and that the logics are explained and the purpose are explained, and even the what you can say, the privacy aspect is clearly explained. You don't have to declare it while getting your DigiPIN. But on the flip side, the fear is, if this is getting adapted in a place other than what is intended, let's say the census level information, the caste census level information, where the details can be decoded to the building level. So in GIS terms, we call this, like, from a village level, we are moving to a building level of information and the medical records and all those things. And then, I have seen a good adaptation in online, for this initiative. Private bankers are coming up. They wanted to adapt this. Like, right now, it is not, enforced on the user, but slowly people will definitely adapt it, because of, this is something which can help their operational efficiency. I'm sure there will be a huge success for this, but if they try to enforce it, user will obviously sign it and then take this as this without knowing much of the possible implications. On those cases, how are, the privacy aspect is managed? That is still, you clearly said that's beyond your purview, but then I'm leaving it open at this stage. How it is going to be managed is a challenge. Second is, how about the data security aspect? Let's say we are taking an information at a very finer level. See, finding the house number so and so and the street number so and so is one aspect, but it is not something which is giving an exact location of a person or a floor or a block in which a person lives in a big apartment area. But DigiPIN can provide that, the geolocation, the closer geolocation of the person's residence or person's office location. How is data security in this aspect handled?
Again, I'll have 2 points here. First of all, at this level, right now, we are not creating some kind of registry of
you are not
people creating DigiPIN or people who have.
Right.
So we just don't collect the information in the first place.
Correct.
So we could have one way, like I said, one way would have been the ask to user to provide your phone number or personal details for the purpose of DigiPIN
That's
generation.
Unnecessary. Right? That will defeat the purpose.
So we made that sure that we don't require that information for the purpose of DigiPIN generation. DigiPIN is a pure function of lat long, right?
Right.
Second question regarding its integration of DigiPIN, I would like to answer that question in two ways. Do you think GIS technology should be used for the purpose of service delivery improvement? So the moment GIS technologies come into picture, it is bringing that much required granularity, right? So if we rely on textual data and other means of data collection, what is happening is it's a very inefficient way. First of all, that is also data collection, right? And data processing. We are talking about textual data. We talk of all other identifiers, which is unnecessarily required. So what it allows is that, how I see is that at a personal level as well as our organization level, based on our internal discussion, we believe that GIS technologies has to be brought in for the much required service delivery, from a service delivery improvement standpoint. That is required. So that is a conscious decision department took. Now the question is that how are we going to implement that from a service delivery standpoint whenever there is a data processing? So under DPDP, all the organizations who are a data fiduciary has their own responsibility when it comes to data handling, not just DigiPIN I'm talking about any data processing at large by any data fiduciary. So how I see that is that we are basically delinking other attributes which was otherwise required to be collected, rather than So we are facilitating an identifier which is nothing but lat long, right? It is a pure function of lat long. No other information is required for the connection of DigiPIN. So it is the ease of sharing location that we have facilitated of the user, right? By the user or any asset for that matter. Suppose, one interesting area which is slightly diverging from our existing topic, right? Is that, people, I have seen people complaining about potholes and pollution sources through Twitter using DigiPIN. So what I am trying to imply is that DigiPIN being a pure function of lat long, it only represents a location. The intent of the DigiPIN is for location representation. I would say that was the right way to put it.
Right.
In different contexts, because address in itself has that location information it's one of the information within the address. Every place where address is being shared, and we suppose in a scenario where DigiPIN is being as the status quo, maybe in a few years or a few months, maybe, right? We have to have that all organization, be it government or be it private sector, we have to have that responsibility when it comes to handling of any data that has some which can qualify as a PI data, person information data. So that is my understanding of things.
So I'll put it in this way. So for example, if a person stuck during a flood in a particular building and want to share the location, that is so and so and got stuck in so and so place, that is something where the privacy comes into picture. But the real power of this is actually lies when an accident happened in a place. Instead of calling in a hotline and then explaining the place, location, landmark, all this. So if we can able to find a DigiPIN of that place and say this is the accident spot, the emergency response team can reach much, much faster. So that is the power of this. But the concern at the same time comes along with the privacy aspect. When the person information is being proliferated along with this information, that is a worry where we don't want to see this DigiPIN along with our Aadhaar card in later stage. That's the only concern. Because when you have an identity where entire financial transaction, entire history of a person, the income level, family information, caste information, everything comes in one place. And then you have DigiPIN, which also adds your location to it. That is something which I think as a commoner, we don't want to see that in future. So let's see, that depends on department, as you said. So let's hope. Yeah.
So I just want to clear one thing is that the problem of identity is solved or being solved through that Aadhaar initiative, right? UID. We are not trying to solve the identity problem here. Identity problem is totally as per under our Aadhaar Act. Identity problem, we have the whole ecosystem to do it. We have whole set of services surrounding.
Gokul, I'm very clear. I'm not saying that you're trying to solve the identity problem. What I'm saying is, if this information goes along with the problem solved, that gives more, information about an individual. That's the thing. Anyway, so one thing I also wanted to check when this proposal was made, right? Again, there are two questions here. The one is, before this initiative, there are initiatives from, let's say, Google Plus Code, and there is Map My India's Maple Spin, and and then 3-word. There's another one called What 3 Words, right? These are the initiatives which are there at within India and outside the India. This is one question. These are the 3 initiatives which are already there. So how DigiPIN is unique and why I have to remember DigiPIN for it. That is one. Second question is, there are similar national level systems like UK's postcode or Japan's address code. Some are there and being in place for a while, right? So when we prepared this, I'm sure we would have looked at those systems also. So how are we? Are we in a similar place like the other countries? It is in the same concept, or is it completely different, unique, which is customized for Indian conditions? So these two questions I would expect you to, throw some lights.
Yeah. So India has lot of apart from the like in this Google and what three words is a international like it's not an indigenous solution, but we also have like Zipper, Patha. There are a lot of organization internally who has some kind of address identifier or location identifier. So if we distinguish them. One distinction is that there are some proprietary solution. There are open source solution like Google Plus Code is an open source solution, though it is from from Google side, but it's an open source solution. Anyone can integrate it. But many of the solutions that you have mentioned, they are proprietary in nature. And if suppose what three words, okay, many people, the one feedback that we often get is, why don't you use what three words, or where the solution is already there? It's like suggesting let us use Geo as the default mode of mobile connectivity in the country, right? Just because you cannot have vendor lock-ins when it comes to building up digital public infrastructure at a societal level. There is need to be a open source solution which can be adopted by anyone if required. And also the idea, the value addition, Nithiyanandam, that I see, rather than pitching DigiPIN as a technological solution, the real value proposition is the consensus building that this is bringing to picture, like Google Plus Code. Other proprietary solutions or other companies may not be comfortable integrating Google Plus Code right in their solution because due to conflict of their commercial interest or right. So what DigiPIN provides, what Department of Post or government provides, it is providing a neutral platform where then anyone can build, right? So we are creating a consensus in the way in which locations are represented, shared and consumed in the country. That's the first value proposition. Going back to the international models, there are a lot of the US has US National Grid, they have zip code, UK has postcodes, right? Ghana has, like I mentioned about Ghana has Ghana GPS. All these countries have most of the countries have two layers of this, what we called as address information. The first level, we have something called an address reference system. That is what like our PIN code, postcode, zip codes, and all those things. Right now, DigiPIN comes into that level, right? It's a referential system. It's nothing but a grid system or some kind of reference system for locating the address. Most of these countries have an address information management system built on top of it. That is what lacking in the country. US has National Address Database. UK has National Address Gazetteer. Estonia has address data system, ADS they have. Australia have GNAF, National Address File. So they have, all these countries, developed countries, have some kind of address data management ecosystem. And many of these countries are centralized in nature, right? They have some kind of centralized data repository. That is where I think our discussion should also go in that direction. Till now, our discussion is mainly on DigiPIN and all. What actually the country is trying to build, the government is trying to build is trying to build a federated, consent-based address information management system, what we called as a digital address DPI, which is the layer on top of it that we are trying to build on DigiPIN. So that is where, even Japan very recently, maybe within 1 month or 2 months before, Japan has introduced something very similar to what we are trying to build. But again, my understanding about the document available is, I may be wrong here, but it is centralized in nature. So in India, like coming back to your privacy question, we are not trying to create a centralized address database.
It is a bottom-up approach without any additional layer of information on their personal things.
No, it's not just that. Actually, if you go through the policy document of which we have released, digital address DPI policy document, we are trying to create a federated architecture where there are multiple players, already existing entities. They can what we call in as a role, we are calling this address information providers. So there are multiple address information providers in this ecosystem, proposed in this ecosystem, through which whichever address information provider which the user is comfortable with and is giving the consent to, through that
Right.
platform, a user can create their digital address. So digital address is the actual value, actual product that in the ecosystem is actually what we call digital address. It's something called an UPI, something like an UPI ID or an email address, right? It will look like something like Gokul C V at the rate of DOP or Gokul C V at the rate of SBI or something like that, right? So through this AIPs, address information providers, these user-defined labels are going to be created. So the next time when your address need to be consumed or shared, you just have to share this user-defined labels, okay, for the purpose of service delivery. Again, this is not a centralized ecosystem that we are building. The policy document clearly says that, and it is official stand of in government of India when it comes to building digital public infrastructure at a societal scale.
Right.
In the task force report also, whatever department is building, we are trying to build a federated system. In the recent times, almost all the DPIs in the recent DPIs follow a federated ecosystem. This is where I think where we par with other countries, and where we are trying to create that an alternative path of solving the address information management system. That problem this is how we are trying to solve it.
Thanks a lot for clarifying it in a detailed way, Gokul, because anytime whenever I've been kind of promoting and taking this initiative forward in many places wherever I go, whenever I speak with students and fellow experts. So that time, the first question comes from the students is like, we already have Google codes, we already have other services, but why we need to create an identity and keep an identity for us is something you have explained, and that is very much important when we are bringing in a country based on geospatial infrastructure and based on digital infrastructures at large. So thank you so much on this. I'll move on to two quick last questions. One is, I understand this is in two dimension, and when we if this is something to locate a person living in a 20th floor on a building apartment, how a person can get his unique, digital in footprint compared to a person living on the same block in the first floor. Like, this is one challenge which always comes to my mind. How are we going to solve this? Because I tell you an importance of it. Right now, it is, in 2D, we are locating it. Maybe in future, we may be looking at a scenario where drones can come and drop certain things right into your balcony. This information would be fantastic, and this is pinpoint towards the exact thing. So are we in a position in future to accommodate height as another parameter in along, with X comma Y? Can Z be added to it in future? Is there a feasibility?
Actually, I have two answers here, two approaches to this answer.
Right.
One is that whenever we need many people acknowledge that there is need to be further granularity to this open source code for the purpose of locating that person or the user, right? They acknowledge that there need to be further granularity. No, I just don't need the 2D level granularity. I need the 3D granularity also, so that I can locate the exact address.
Right.
Then obviously it is from in different contexts, people are also kind of somehow worried that are we adding more granularity to the picture? So what we have done at this moment is that we have decided we are not creating a unique address identifier, right?
Correct.
We are not trying to create some kind of system readable code which represent your door. That is not the idea. The DigiPIN is nothing but a location identifier. It is not trying to be something else. It is not, right? So when it comes to 3D information, we could have gone up with, say, floor information. If it is a second floor, we could have come up with some schema for 02 or something. At this point, we didn't go in that route due to two reasons. First of all, the fact that we are not trying to create a unique address identifier, but an address attribute, right? And it's in being like considering that privacy aspect, we are not trying to exactly locate your location from a 3D perspective so that drones can fly in. Future, and one more thing, and this is also one thing I like to flag is that think about something kind like a drone, which can locate any point in space to its 100% precision or something, right? So it requires a system readable identifier, not just a human interpretable identifier. So if you are building something for the drone, for the drones, ideally it is a purely 3D model or some kind of a 3D identifier. So right now our consumer market, if you see, there is an error associated with all GNS capture, right? You are very aware of that. So if we try to create a model right now based on floor information without having an accurate height representation in the code,
I agree with you.
Yeah. So that was one of the reasons. So we created a bare skeleton, which is a pure function of lat long, and we leave it at that. If required, we can have models when the system mature, when the ecosystem mature. We always have that function when the consumer market of height, height information or some kind of such identifier had to be done. We have that option of capturing that separately and bundling that together in that digital address label level.
So all I was asking is like the algorithm right now has a scope to add this in future. That's what you have answered it. If we require, we can do it, right?
So maybe at the DigiPIN level, we may not be. We can.
The
add
end
it.
user can add one more character to it, right? Additional or two more characters to it. So since we have talked about the lot of dependency on getting accurate lat and long, and we also pointed out the current challenges are like getting the x comma y accurate also. At times at individual level it is completely up to the device the person uses, and I'm sure I was like quite happy to see it was properly mentioned the accuracy of this location information is being collected on this platform, so dependent upon the user device. Now, in simpler terms, some person may use GPS, some person may use GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, and Baidu, and we are yet to see more devices with IRNSS. So the accuracy is different. For example, in terms of Takshashila, it is in a church street in Bangalore. When we try to get it, if the device has a better accuracy, we can write they get the exact location of our building. But for a while, at times, the devices are poor, the accuracy is not good. It will show few meters away. So to understand this is more like, giving this information to people. People should realize how to use it. People should know, this process in detail, because you also said you can use an automated location information or you can manually point your house or location through the maps that you rightly did. But do you think it will take a little more time, and what are the capacity building activity that we are planning to do or the department is planning to do in order to take this forward? But I see this is slightly different than the UPI thing, because people immediately jump and say, oh, UPI was introduced like this, now we know UPI, everybody knows UPI. That's there. But map reading is different. Identifying the errors which are happening behind the curtain is something different. So how have you looked at this? How are we, going to address this kind of challenges, especially when we do not have a fully functional geodetic system for the country, and when we shift towards NAVIC, we may have a slight difference in the level of codes, like the 6 digit of decimal places that we have in latitude and longitude. That will also stay. So there are many complications when we just rely on the latitude and longitude to 6 decimal digits, right? So is that thought somewhere?
Yeah. So the thing is that, first we have to address the fact that there are some infrastructural limitation to the existing geospatial ecosystem in the country. When it comes to upstream services, be it the satellites itself, even the NAVIC, right? We all would be, from an India's perspective, maybe a better, like a more denser constellation or more infra might be not might be it is required, right? I think we all have an agreement there. So what
Right.
we are like from the at the Department of Post level, we are actually further downstream when it comes to in the whole value chain, right? We are trying to, at the location level, we are trying to bring user into this as a consumer to this GIS ecosystem at the down and in the downstream. So any upgradation in the upstream when it comes to infrastructure upgradation or any innovation for that matter, like course introduction of course in the country, right? Course infrastructure in the country, different department is are they are building as we speak, right? So like one development that we are very eager to see is that course network being opened up to our consumer devices. Right now, you need specific receivers, that devices for the purpose of connecting to network and all. Right. Suppose think about a scenario where our consumer mobiles, tablets, laptops can connect to cores for better sub-meter precision.
Right.
So right now, like from a Department of Post perspective, we are right now not looking into that part of things, but parallelly we are talking with other departments to see how this ecosystem is going to improve, right? So coming back to the user perspective, from the start itself we have tried to give an indication about if you see the UI, if you see the metadata associated with it, we are trying to give the indication and the clear direction to the user that your GNSS accuracy will have some impact on the DigiPIN generation. And these are the ways in which you can further improve it. Okay, like you can override the current location based DigiPIN generation through manually dropping the pin on the place that you want to your DigiPIN to be generated exactly. So we have come up with different ways in which such improvement can be done, and also signaling to the user, okay, these from a visual cue standpoint, this much error is possible, and all those things. Right. And the purpose of also making this open source is that there are private sector like Map My India, S3, all these different companies, private sector companies who are catering to different segment of this GIS ecosystem. We want them also to build on stuff so that we are not the sole engine for this DigiPIN adoption. What if someone from the upstream directly see the potential that the DigiPIN adoption is happening in the downstream? They invest on heavy infrastructure for the purpose of refinement of DigiPIN. So that is the whole. So we were very clear that way, and we were guided in the right direction, I would say, from different. We had almost 2 years of stakeholder consultation in this. So that is, I would say, how we see things in this whole adoption part. But we had to totally agree that we should not portray to be something that we are not. Yeah, that's like I think from the
So see, I'll make one statement because we are living in a country where we created a lot of digital requirements, right, for getting certificates. We say it is really, really functional and it's fantastic. By sitting in a place, we can get all the documents that we wanted in many state government and union government initiatives. But the problem at the larger set of people goes to the centers, right? Let's say e-seva centers on many aspects. They try to get the services through them. It is not wrong. It is really good. But let's say somebody mandates to get the DigiPIN. The only way for a person to get it is go to the place and get it. So it cannot be done by a e-seva. So it has to be done by an individual, or a services should allow people to go and help the person to get it on the ground. So what I'm saying is adapting this and proliferating it at all levels, all set of people. It will take little more time, and somewhere the capacity building also need to be built for people to understand it, to understand error. You have declared it, you have created open source code, fantastic. You have pointed out an error possibilities. You have pointed out a map where in case of error, you can use this. But a set of people can only use this, right? So if you ask a question, how many of us are using Google Code? or Map My India's Maple Sprint. So far, there are very limited set of people. So when we are
True that.
looking at this fantastic service for a larger group of people, maybe we need to think of capacity building also. And I'm sure you will definitely look into it. One last question, Gokul, because we have consumed a lot of time. I really enjoyed talking to you because you are so good in explaining everything in detail. One last question: what kind of policy support or intervention do you think will help to achieve its full potential? It is a good initiative launched with a good intention. So, what kind of policy support or intervention may be required to push it further better?
So how we think is that it should not be a government led the how when we think about an implementation standpoint, or we believe that private sector has a way, like a large role to play in it, not just from
Okay.
so what we have done is that we have made sure is that the private sector is consulted at the time of policy formulation itself.
Right,
So,
right.
like we said, what are its when we released the beta, we did an extensive outreach to private sector to see what their pain points are. We talked to fintech companies, we talked to logistic companies. So we have to make comfortable, like you, the point you noted down is that suppose we are trying to build at a societal level, you cannot expect the user to come to a some kind of a government center for DigiPIN generation, right? There have to be
Right,
multiple engines of adoption and champions for pushing this to 150 crore people, right? Uh,
right.
so what I'm trying to say is that, think of a scenario. Just think of a scenario where Swiggy or Zomato allows for DigiPIN generation itself. Okay, because it's already GIS based. So for that player, it is just a piece of code that they have to, every time you open your Swiggy or Zomato, it shows the DigiPIN of that particular location.
Right,
So
right.
think about all such individual engines of from private sector as well as from government agencies for which facilitate adoption of the user and value added services on top of it. What if there are agencies who are into DigiPIN allocation and there is a revenue stream for it? So the policy, an ideal policy, what I would say is that to facilitate private sector to in the formulation of the policy level itself, and also facilitating them to be part of this implementation. Second, and allowing them to create value added services
Right.
around this DigiPIN ecosystem, so that the market itself would allow them to come up with different value propositions around DigiPIN. That is one part from an adoption standpoint. But I totally agree with you from a user perspective. What their concerns are, what their limitations are, there has to be a capacity building from through different channels,
Right,
from a
right.
even an outreach program. We are trying to solve a problem for someone living in the rural part of the country. If they don't even
Exactly.
understand what DigiPIN is, right, then the whole effort goes flat. So
Right.
from that perspective, we are also trying to collaborate with state government and state agencies, IT departments, their local government department. We are personally having discussions with them on a face-to-face basis, so that a niche solutions for different country part of the country may have to be charted out for the purpose of catering to different segment of the society. And it should not be I don't think this policy should not be decided and discussed in closed rooms. That is also one of the reasons that we are also trying
Right,
to
right.
be out there to be criticized, as well as we are being as transparent as possible whenever we are
Right.
getting some kind of outreach request from any part of the
Right, right,
segment of
right.
society and sector. We try to reach out to them so that maybe I'm saying maybe Takshashila might be coming up
Right.
with some brainstorming exercise which would then trigger for some kind of improvement in the
Right,
policy
right,
implementation. So that's the
right.
idea. We don't take ownership of what we are building. And I would all even object to you being like, I have only part of this project for almost just 1-2 years. This
Okay.
idea has been there much earlier, and this is a collectively, not from government perspective. There are multiple private sector agencies adopting this, even for fintech companies, private sector companies. So I think it required that multidisciplinary, multi-sector approach.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how I see things.
Thanks, Google, because you fantastically explained it. Because for people living in urban, they may feel like, "Arey, hamara paas more than one opportunities to get a code. Why should we get it?" But people living in rural, the difficulty in accessing rural areas, and I've also understood somewhere it is written, the kind of challenges in delivering postal things to the last mile in some parts of India is still challenging. It still miss out larger things. So I'm sure this will help postal department for sure. This will bring a lot of innovative solutions built on it based on private players. And I believe it will also help to make good governance, both state and union level. But my only concern still stays on the capacity building part and the privacy part on it. Thank you so much, Gokul. We have taken a lot of your time and you have explained it wonderfully. Thanks to you and your department for, to be part of this show. And look forward to interact with you on many more occasions on the development of this DigiPIN in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nithiyanandam. Thank you, team Takshashila.
Yeah, thank you.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.